Hello, sisters. In this Monday Miracle Mindset call, I want to start with this quote by Mel Robbins. She says, "Sometimes there is no time, no next time, no second chance, and no time out. Stop waiting. It's now or never. When you wait, you aren't procrastinating. You're doing something more dangerous. You are deliberately convincing yourself now is not the time. You are actively working against your dreams." I'll read it again. I see some of you joining me right here. Let me go into a second. Wonderful. I'm going to read this quote one more time by Mel Robbins. She says, "Sometimes there is no next time, no second chance, or no time out. Stop waiting. It's now or never. When you wait, you are doing something more. You're not just procrastinating. You're doing something more dangerous. You're deliberately convincing yourself that it's not the time. You're actively working against your dreams." So I want you to reflect on this. When are the times? What are some of the things that you're telling yourself that you know are good for you? You know that they will help you feel better, that you know that they will help you feel more enjoying your life more, feel more at peace and more pleasure in your life, in your body, but somehow you are putting it for later and telling yourself not now. Maybe you're telling yourself it's too good for you to get to say yes now. And what are some of the things, what are some of the emotions that are in the background that are convincing you not to say yes to your own pleasure? I know it's an edgy thing to talk about right now, especially with the war going on in the Middle East, in Israel and Palestine. It's edgy for me to talk about pleasure. And I have thought a lot about whether I want to continue this series, because I started this series before the war started. And of course, the war is going on in Russia for a while. And for me to be the stand for pleasure and enjoyment of life feels edgy. It feels edgy for me. And I have experienced a lot of feelings of guilt myself for prioritizing pleasure. How many of you have felt guilty of putting your own pleasures at the forefront of your priorities, especially in the times when there's so much suffering and turmoil and wars happening on the planet? Say it in the comments if you find yourself in that place of saying that to yourself, that it's a luxury to focus on your own pleasures and your own self-care in the times when there's so much happening in the world. I'm going to open the book, see who is here watching us. Oh. Hi, Bhavani. Nice to see you, Diana. So I am here as a stand for you to claim your birthright of pleasure. And I have something very, very, very special coming up that I want to share with you. I already started sharing with some of you privately, and there's already incredible group of women who join me on an amazing retreat in Costa Rica. It's a retreat where we come into our divine right to be in communion and as an expression of nature. in Costa Rica. And of course, we're always an expression of nature. We are nature. And the biggest block that I see in us women, especially healers and givers, that disconnects us from this birthright of experiencing the deepest levels of pleasure in our life, of that vibration that trickles through you, where you know you're just in bliss, where you are merged an expression of the source energy herself, of the goddess. You know that you are the goddess and expression of love and the divinity. And one of the biggest blocks is disconnection from this vessel, from this body. And so many of the women that I see, clients, and I myself did it for decades, was hovering over my body, where I wasn't fully in my yoni, in connection to the pleasure center, where the earth could speak through me. I could feel the trees, I could feel the pulse of the earth, and I could feel my body so alive. And now I'm so just ecstatic most of the days, where I can feel through my body, even when there is devastation, even when there is so much grief, and my heart just cracks open with sobbing, and yet I still able to feel at the same time. I can hold all of this because I'm allowing my yoni, my body, my pelvis, my heart, my belly to be open and allowing for this pulse of the Mother Earth energy to move through me. And I can hold bigger and bigger container for the energy to move through me without restricting and closing and shutting down those feelings. So that is in the last couple of videos. In the first video, I talked about fear being the first block to pleasure. In the second video, I talked about sadness as the block to pleasure, when we don't allow ourselves to feel sadness, because sadness is a natural expression and feeling, emotion that we humans experience, and we need to allow and welcome it in order to feel the deeper feelings of bliss and pleasure and joy coursing through our veins. And today I want to talk about, in combination with disembodiment and leaving our body as a way of disconnecting from nature that we are. And the side of it, the other side of it, is shame and guilt as another kind of pair that create a block to our full expression and experience of pleasure. And those of you who are curious and interested, I want to say a couple of words about this retreat that I am feeling the deepest honor and privilege of hosting and facilitating in Costa Rica next year. And those of you who are interested, it will be my honor to welcome you, because we already have about 10 women who have joined, and we still have quite a few spaces for you. It will be a divine experience of coming into our temples and allowing the lusciousness of nature to remind us of our nature, to crack open our bodies through sacred touch, the touch of the sisters who honor and respect you, who bring presence through their hands and touch your body in a way that brings that disassociated, disconnected, fragmented parts of you back into this vessel of the body, where you can deeply drop into your yoni, into your pelvis, into your legs, into the earth, and feel all the energies and all emotions within you that bring you into that birthright of experiencing pleasure, and releasing the blurriness or unclarity around boundaries, where you leak your energy, where you give away your energy, where you give away out of feelings of shame and guilt. How many of you feel like you give to others not from that deep knowing, yes, but from a feelings of guilt and maybe shame? So I want to talk about those two feelings, the guilt and shame. And before that, I want to drop a link for those of you who want to feel there is some medicine there. There is some yes feeling inside of your body. And I'll talk a little bit more about that feeling of yes and the feeling of no in your body and how to distinguish those two. And I will drop a link for those of you who feel a desire to explore. One second, where is that link? Let me take a look. I see some sisters here. Bhavani. Yeah, thank you for sharing the light even in the dark times. Thank you, Bashista. I am so well. Thank you for being here. Yes. Hi. Hi, sisters. I feel so like crack open right now. I feel everything. And it's a blessing. I know it's a blessing to be alive and to feel everything, to feel the totality of the human feelings and experiences. My heart feels so much sadness and devastation and grief for what's happening in the Middle East. And at the same time, I'm celebrating life. I am putting a stake on the ground for each one of us, up-leveling our ability to radically celebrate life every single moment, to feel our day, to feel every moment, and to commit to being as alive and vibrant and healthy and pleasure-filled as we can be. That's my response to what's happening in the world. My response is to increase my commitment to the internal state that I have control over. And I have control over what is my vibration? Is my vibration of joy and pleasure and peace and possibilities for the planet? And that's what I'm choosing. I choose not to take sides. I choose to support both sides. I choose to support humanity as a whole, and I choose to see the vision of peace on the planet through, first of all, through internally resolving any conflicts that each one of us has within ourselves. And that's why I'm doing this series on the blocks that stay in the way of our own inner pleasure. That is our birthright. And from that place of fullness and celebration, radical celebration of life, I can pour and support all of my clients that I see throughout the week and our group calls with my Confident Healer Academy. And from this place, I'm creating this retreat where we're going to Costa Rica to up-level our ability to receive from the universe and to know that we are supported by the universe and have the deeper level of trust and release any blocks of shame, guilt, fears that might be standing of the way, that there isn't enough of support, that there isn't enough money, that there isn't enough safety, whatever that is. So for today's topic of shame and guilt, shame is an invisible enemy that creates this wallpaper effect that separates us from our true ability to know that we are worthy of receiving, worthy of experiencing pleasure, worthy of support, unlimited support. So I invite you to think about in which areas of your life you felt like you don't have support or you're not supported. Maybe it shows up financially. Maybe it shows up in friendships where you feel like you give more than you receive. Maybe it shows up in your work where there is a creeping feeling of resentment, where you feel like you just give and you don't fully feel like you're being received and supported in the way that you would like. So shame is the emotion that tied to the belief that I am flawed, or that there is something wrong with me, or I'm broken, or I'm not enough. How many of you have experienced any kind of thoughts, patterns around this? Others have it all figured out. Their life is perfect. And you go into those patterns of comparing yourself to the perfect picture of another person who seemingly has it all together. Maybe you look at me like, oh, Yulia, she has it all together. Or somebody else, they're so much more eloquent, or they're so much more expressive, or they have it all together. They're more successful than I am. But I don't have it in me to do what it takes to do what I really want to do. If you have any kinds of dialogues, internal dialogues, self-talk that says something like that, know that this is absolutely normal. And I don't think there's another person that gets this in the depth that I do, because I lived most of my life from the early age when my mom always put other kids on a pedestal and told me, like, look at this person. They're so much more intelligent. They're so much more organized. Why can't you be like that? Yes, I see you commenting. Yes. I am indulging in pure pleasure right now in a hot tub. Oh my goodness. I love that you're watching this from a hot tub with Epsom salt. Outside circumstances like the current wars, I'm doing everything I can to keep my vibrational frequency up, lifted. Yay. Oh, I love it. Yes. So where was I? Shame. So if you have any kinds of dialogues, so my intention is to normalize it. And it's like a collective wound that most of us have. And guilt and shame, they are different. They feel similarly in the body. So I'd like you to start to contemplate. Some of you have done a lot of the breath therapy, and you know very well when you're experiencing shame and how to start to release it. So they feel similarly, guilt and shame, but they have a different flavor. So shame is about I'm flawed, I am wrong, I am bad, there's something wrong with me. And guilt is about I did something wrong. It's about an act, or I did something wrong for another person. I did the wrong thing, and therefore I feel guilty. So shame is also developed by a lack of boundaries in the family, when there wasn't like some kind of a dysfunction, when it wasn't okay to hold clear energetical boundaries. And the fear imposed on the young mind by social institutions, by family, by pressure to be a certain way. And a lot of times those shameful feelings don't belong to us. They were given to us. Like I expressed to you, in my family, there were certain expectations of me to be smart or be like other kids. And I took that on as my own. So in order for us to heal that block to pleasure and joy, we have to release it and give it back to where we took that shameful feelings. We have to give it back to those people, because they don't belong to us. And there are certain rituals that we can do to actually release the shame. We can bury it, we can burn it, we can throw a pillow and give it back to where it came from. And another way to really powerfully heal shame is to name it and to be witnessed with love and acceptance by another person. And to also witness other people expressing their shame, because we start to identify and recognize that we are not alone in it. And the more we bring this dark block out of our subconscious buried grounds into the light and express it and talk about the things that we are ashamed of ourselves, the more it dissipates, the less it has a grip over us. And the more light, the more open, the more spacious and pleasurable we can feel. So, and some of the signs of this block of shame are verbally, it can show up as stuttering or difficulty speaking and expressing yourself, wanting to be quiet, wanting to not make any noise, kind of hiding, that pattern of hiding. It can show up as not being comfortable with an eye gaze, kind of looking away and not being comfortable looking at another person, feeling like you would be found out or revealed or too exposed. And it's also can be self-deprecating or inappropriate statements or talking too much, talking everything, saying everything that you can think of, like not having that boundary or filter about what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. And it can be also look like excessive apologizing, being, oh my God, I'm so sorry, just being excessively apologetic. Or it can also look like being overly entitled, feeling like exaggeration. It can look like exaggerated, inflated ego. The other side of shame is exaggerated and inflated ego. It can show up as a whole narcissistic personality and making it all about yourself. Everything is all about you, and not seeing a bigger picture perspective that it's really not about you. And also it looks like, and visually on your face, it can look like shyness. I already mentioned trying to hide and not fully wanting to be seen. It can also look like feeling like redness, getting red in your face, embarrassment, or anxiety, social anxiety. For me, it showed up in a big way. I would faint. I fainted in my speech class because I felt terrible. I felt like everybody is going to see me and judge me and find out that I am incapable, that I'm stupid, that I am not good enough, that they will all finally find out. So I fainted. It can also look like some of the external ways that we mask the shame, try to mask the shame, is trying to be perfect. By trying to be perfect, we become perfectionists. And like, for example, if you're working on a website, for example, or if you're working on some kind of a project, and you are perfecting it and perfecting it and perfecting it until it has everything together. How many of you have experienced that? And then you feel like it's worthy to show to the world. And this is just I'm sharing all of these for you to get clear and find, and the more you are aware of your patterns, the less they have grip over you. That's the way to release shame. So comment in below any of these patterns. What are you catching yourself in this block to pleasure, which is shame, and the other side of it, guilt? What are you noticing of everything that I've been sharing so far? What are some of the symptoms that, just like going to a doctor or being with a holistic practitioner, and that's what we're doing. We are identifying the conditions, and by identifying, we're not doing it for us to be hard on ourselves, but we're doing it so we can be a detective. And when we see clearly, when we increase our awareness, we can release those blocks that are not serving our higher self or our future self or our divine self. And other way that shame can show up is people pleasing. When we try to people please, what we're doing is that we don't feel comfortable with being who we are. And we're trying to mask it by pleasing others and making them, it's a control mechanism to make them like us, because we don't feel like just the way we are is enough. just the way you are somehow feels flawed or not complete divine perfection that you truly are. And some of the ways it can also look like covering it up with anger. That's another mask of shame. Is on the external, it looks like anger, but deep down there's shame. So, and the way to heal, another way to heal and peel those layers is to release anger, because it's on the surface of shame. I'm just breathing with you, and let me take a look if anybody else has shared. Thank you for tuning in. I so appreciate all of you being here. Okay, let me see if I can find that link that I was looking earlier for. It's an opportunity for those of you who would like to explore the possibility of being in the retreat with me in Costa Rica. I'm opening up spaces. There's already an amazing group of women who join me. They are the inner circle, that I call them the founding members of Sacred Pleasure and the Art of Receiving retreat in Costa Rica. It's next year, and it's in the most luscious, pleasure-filled, luxurious retreat center that's 5 stars. And it's an opportunity to drop into your divine feminine and let your cup be filled up by beauty, by sisterhood, by rituals that we will be engaging in, just like what I was sharing, some of the rituals of releasing those blocks that stand in the way of you truly, deeply owning your pleasure, owning your divine right to feel bliss on a regular basis. Okay, so let me take a look. Where is that link? Okay, here it is. And this is an opportunity to sit down with me one-on-one in a confidential and private space where I will hold a sacred container for you to explore what is the sacred pleasure for you. What does it feel like? And what is it? How does it look like in your life? What is your next up level? What is the transformation that is possible for you that you perhaps haven't allowed yourself to experience yet and welcome yet? So here it is. I'm going to put it underneath this video so you can receive this sacred pleasure breakthrough session with me. And I opened up some spaces this week for us to sit and explore what it means for you to open to the next level of bliss as a divine right and as a medicine in the current times we're in right now, when the wars are happening. How can you up-level your ability to feel pleasure as a medicine that we need to give to the world right now? So now I want to talk a little bit more about the other side of this block, which is guilt. And guilt is a different feeling. Guilt, it feels very similarly in the body, but guilt has a different vibration. It's a different, the root of it is different than shame. The root of guilt is feeling that you did something wrong, or it's also can be guilt that you didn't do what you thought was appropriate and right for you to do. So clearing up guilt is a judgment. Guilt is a judgment about yourself, while shame is experiencing ourselves as defective. See, there's a difference. Guilt, you're judging yourself, and shame, you are feeling like you are flawed. It's like it's a deep feeling that there's something wrong with me. Guilt is about wrongdoing, like I already said, and shame is about self being wrong. See the difference? Guilt is about you did something wrong or didn't do what was right to do, and shame is you are wrong yourself. Guilt is about making a mistake, And shame is about, I am a mistake. See the difference? So I'm just talking about this very subtle, but very powerful and distinct differences between guilt and shame. But I am grouping them together because they feel very similarly in the body. There's a similar feeling in the body. And I'd like you to start to identify when you feel guilty and ashamed, how does that feel in your body? And when we, like, remember I started this video earlier, the block to feeling pleasure is when we are not in the body. When we're not in the body, we can't tell what we're feeling. We're disconnected from the feeling. And in order for us to feel and be of the earth and feel that we are deserving, we're worthy, we're a child of the earth, we are the earth, we are nature. We have to get all the way down into the yoni, all the way down into our feet, all the way down into our bones, and feel that connection to the deserving feeling that I'm here. And that's how we can heal shame and guilt, is by feeling it and releasing it, because it's not serving us to hold on to it in any way. And also guilt is worry about punishment. When we feel guilty, we worry that we somehow will be punished. It's that Catholic or Jewish guilt of punishment, being punished, that there will come a punishment day. What is it called? Atonement Day. I'm not sure. But that there will be a moment where will we be punished. So there's like a internal feeling of fear connected to guilt. And shame is a fear of being abandoned. When we are wrong, inherently wrong, there is a fear of being left alone because we're wrong, we're bad. If I am bad, that nobody will love me and nobody will be there for me, so I will be abandoned. And when we're running those circuits, that neurological circuits and internally, we're cutting. Can you see how we're cutting ourselves from the birthright of pleasure and feeling deserving and belonging to the earth, belonging to a circle of women, belonging to community, that we're no different than anybody else. We're just like everybody else. We have the same makeup that like everybody else. Even whether it's the person is successful and famous and seems like they're all put together and you say, I am not there, you're exactly the same. There's no difference. The only difference is that somehow when we feel disconnection, there's a block that creates that wall and a sense of, I am separate, and I'm not as good as you are, and I'm afraid of being abandoned in case of shame, or I'm afraid of being punished in case of guilt. And guilt motivates us to confess, and that's the way to heal guilt. To heal guilt is to confess with somebody who you feel that you did something wrong, or it can be somebody else. It can be a therapist, breath therapist like myself, confessing something that you feel that you're holding on to that feeling of guilt. And shame motivates us to conceal. So the way to release shame is to let it to be out and expressed and visible and known. Let what wanted to be concealed to be known. And that's the way of healing shame. And also to heal guilt, we need to make right in whatever way that it's right. It may be writing a letter. That's one way that I a lot of times suggest my clients do, is writing a letter to whoever you feel like you did something wrong with. And it doesn't necessarily mean sending that letter. A lot of times it's a very powerful way of taking off that weight off of your own chest and your own body and releasing it. You're releasing yourself from it. Or it can be burning that letter, just writing and then giving it to the universe, giving it to the divine, giving it to the goddess, to Archangel Michael, to Mother Mary, or Mary Magdalene, or whoever that is, whoever is your source energy or divine mother or goddess or higher power of your understanding, or God or goddess or Allah. So with this, I will come to a close with reading one more time what I said in the beginning. This really powerful quote by Mel Robbins. Let me see if I can find it. Sometimes, and I think about your pleasure when I read this quote by Mel Robbins, think about things that you really love to do, but you haven't given yourself permission, or maybe you have said, not now. Or my cup is already full. I already told myself good things that I can do, but just feels like too good to be true, maybe even. There's something that maybe it's for you to come to Costa Rica with us, and you're telling yourself it's just too good. I already have said to so many wonderful things, and I just feel guilty or undeserving or afraid to say yes and invest in yourself in that way. Or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's giving yourself fully to your passions and your purpose, and you somehow make excuses and procrastinate. Procrastination is also one of the ways that shame shows up. It's just procrastinating and not feeling like you're ready. It's not now. So, okay, here's the quote. Sometimes there is no next time, no second chance, or no time out. Stop waiting. It's now or never. When you wait, you aren't procrastinating. You're doing something more dangerous. You're deliberately convincing yourself now is not the time. You're actively working against your dreams. So with that, I just invite you to comment in the chat. What is your dream that you perhaps haven't fully given yourself permission to say yes to go after, to chase it, to let your heart lead the way, to say full yes to it? I send you so much love, sisters. I see the best for you. You deserve pleasure, especially in the times like now when there was turmoil and uncertainty happening in the world. You deserve to feel blissful, pleasurable, and filled with infinite peace within your own being, within your heart. With prayers for the earth, as we start with each one of us to claim our peace and pleasure. I send you much love.